Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Arena STL here on the Fuel Sports Network. Once again, we have our special guest, Zach Keilman. And boy, Zach, one thing I can say, it's finally good to talk about good stuff with the Arena Football League, huh?
It's nice to have at least a more calm period for a change. And I'll be honest with you, and I think you and I have talked about this on the side. It feels like, at least if we're talking AFL stuff seems to be moving the right direction. There's still pieces that we can discuss, but I would say my own honest opinion seems to be moving the way I would want to see it. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, because one thing, before we go with any games or stuff, I just want to say that it was just a breath of fresh air to see the coverage from CBS Sports Network compared to what we had on YouTube. Like, nothing really bad, but I'll just say, the bar was kind of set low. Not low to my floor, but I'll say low to my basement floor. But I'll just say it was just refreshing. And I'll just say, watching the games on CBS Sports Network, there was a little bit more excitement, a little bit more focus on it. Do you agree with that?
Yes. One thing that's so nice, and I'm very glad we got to see this on national TV, is look, the camera quality, the shot angles, the presentation, having Ari Wolf call the plays and be the play-by-play for CBS, and getting Coach Muncie, former Soul head coach, on there as well for the color. It was nice. I'll be honest with you. It was really nice. I love to see the sport get put into a light where it looks really good and done up. And I think a lot of people said the same thing, that it looked really nice on broadcast television, and these arenas got highlighted really well. The game was covered really well. Personally, it's exactly what I wanted from coverage on a cable network. And, it shows me what can be. Again, there's still hurdles and things for a lot of this stuff. And I know that, we're going to see the IFL too get back on CBS, and people praised that coverage last year for the championship or former United Bowl. So, it's good to have a bit of a breath of fresh air. There are teams that do good broadcasts, but it's nice to see kind of more of let's analyze the game and neutrally. Let's have it where, every playoff game has a nice production setup. I just was happy. It made me happy inside. I felt whole a little bit to get to kind of just not have to worry about clunky things going on screen.
Yeah, and I'll just say, I know there was a little bit with the commentators and Ari and Muncie, because they didn't really like the new rules when it comes to, the dues, the rules,
right,
and all that stuff. I can understand that to a moment, but it's just that it gets a little bit more stuff with the kicker, because either it goes good for kicker, and it happened both ways in this game. It either helped it, the kicker do some good stuff and some bad stuff. And it was good to hear about their experience and stuff, and it was just good to have commentators that it's not just it's someone by the team. It's a true neutral commentators.
Well, that's the thing. I get that home venues, they do a really good job at kind of bringing their own crews in, and I know that some of them are more leaning towards the fans of the team that are watching at home and those that are producing it for them. But I do like the neutral look at the game. It's one thing that I appreciate with professional commentators, is that, they try and keep it in the middle. They try and analyze the entire thing. That's a refreshing part. That's good. Also, again, with Ari Wolf and Coach Muncie on there, the fact it's talking the old school stuff while also kind of, they haven't seen some of the newer school stuff we've been following for 5 years, from what you could tell on the broadcast. That was kind of cool after the fact to be yeah, maybe they were kind of critiquing a little bit, whatnot here or there. But I thought it was fascinating to just realize after you watch this, you go, oh yeah, it has been 5 years since, the old AFL when it was on ESPN Plus, and then 6 years since it was on CBS Sports last, that we have had professional coverage like this with veterans of the space at color, or true on television color commentate or play-by-play callers. And I think that really spoke for itself on those broadcasts on Friday and Saturday. And they did get better, or they, to me, got really good on the Saturday broadcast, got really into it. And yeah, it's an adjustment period. These rules are different. The AFL's points rules are definitely different. And, they got used to it, and I think it's for the best. It's cool seeing someone kind of take a first look for the first time and kind of, see it without us being adopted to it a little bit.
Yeah, and CBS Sports Network, like usually, like they're like one of the more harder sports stations, but they usually have the best coverage. And honestly, it's better cut like the best coverage for alternative stuff to from the NFL because they have the
Mm-hmm.
CFL and they also have other stuff on there too. So it's kind of good. There, like I haven't seen what the viewership was for the Arena Football League games yet, so I don't know. We'll have to see. Like I am curious because I think there was a point when that first game was on Viry Network, I think they had over 65,000, but I don't know how accurate that was.
Yeah, I'm not 100% on that. And keep in mind, like networks like Vire, you basically just have to click on it, and one click being on it and leaving counts as a view. It's same as like when we talked about Caffeine TV. And by the way, rest in peace, Caffeine TV. That is not around anymore. But that's the same deal. You basically click on it, that's a view. Now CBS Sports, and this is what'll be a little. And I hate to burst your bubble here. They do not do Nielsen ratings anymore. So that you will not get an accurate viewership rating. Now, credit CBS will probably have their own internal benchmarks, and they'll probably see what it is going on. And if I had to be honest with you, Will, remember Nielsen ratings are based on concurrent viewers at a time. It's the same thing as if we're talking like a live stream right now, like what we're doing, you and I. Like how many are on at one point in time or another. So I'll be frank, any of the games that broadcast on CBS Sports, I near guarantee had more than any YouTube broadcast at any regular base. And I know the freedom of YouTube is a big deal. I agree with you. I think the accessibility is great, but for other people beyond our niche, it's not something that people flock to for these games. You need to put it on a general sports network. And I even if Nielsen did ratings, I'm almost promising you the simultaneous viewership will be better on these games than they will be on any YouTube broadcast that's ever come out in the last 5 years.
And I am curious because we know what was supposed to be the deal with them with NFL Network, though it came out that it seemed like Hutton told each owner something different. So I am
Yeah.
curious what it was, but I'm sure it was probably better than just paying them to do the games. But I don't know. I just have a feeling it's probably better than what the NFL Network deal was probably.
Right. And I mean the Hutton deal, it does indeed sound like, when we'd go back and look at it, that people were kind of told one thing or another. If you put together clips of other different people talking about the fiasco early on in the season, then, that was the discussion. And I think from what I understood is that they were supposed to get some sort of kickback from these games, from Hutton, that is. Again, I'm specifying to those watching the Hutton era. It's different. This is not the same group that's running it from the beginning. And honestly, they've been doing a great job since they've started to take over things. So, just want to reiterate that really clearly. The Hutton Run variant, or Arena Football Management LLC, from what I understand, they sound like they were going to give kickbacks to these guys. And clearly that didn't happen. And I think some stuff was a little over some people's heads in terms of the folks running it at that time, in terms of what they were going to get. So, like 1.3 million is a lot of money to get games on air. And it's especially for the space where it is right now.
Yeah, basically, we need to put everything that happened in the Lee Hutton era, put it in a box, board up in a wooden box, and put it in an air like the Indiana Jones, in like the Ark of the Covenant, in a warehouse somewhere, never to be seen or opened ever again.
Exactly. I do want to, because I think that hasn't been talked enough recently, and I get it. The brand still, it's the same team as it came in. It doesn't matter who's running it and all that. But I will say, like, this second half of the season, since they've switched out, they ousted Lee Hutton and Arena Football Management. They let go of Travell Gaines / resigned. One of the two. I always hear mixed. It's been better process. You can see when we talked, I think last time you and I were on, we talked about, look at the people they're bringing in. Look at the stuff they're doing right now. Stuff is moving in the right direction. They got new social medias, which I know some people were not happy about that. But look, the truth of the matter is, if you can't get those accesses, I even say get new social media. And I think they pulled the right trigger doing that as well. So there's stuff moving in the right direction. The CBS deal, I know you'll hint at something that we'll talk on the opposite side of that coin. I think for the eyeballs it's getting, I think it helps personally. but I digress.
Yeah, that's one thing I did mention last week because, like, you and I talked about with your first pitch because for a while they didn't do anything on their Facebook page. They did once Lee Hutton bought it, but then it was like
Mhm.
all of a sudden nothing. It was just on Twitter or X now as it is, and then it was like did they get hacked? Did they lose a password or something? Or it's like what the heck's going on here? Then now, if for anyone who knows that want to follow the Arena Football League on Facebook, it's the AFL,
Yes.
and I'll say like pretty. Hopefully, nothing happens to it. You never know because hackers find new ways every single day, unfortunately.
Right,
So,
right.
like, if that's the problem, but it's good because now if I remember, like because the X is still the same Arena official AFL. They got an Instagram page, and it's going to be interesting what they're going to do for TikTok.
Well, yeah, I mean, the TikTok, I believe, was under G6. And if you remember when G6 was taking over, Anthony Rossi, who's part of that group, said that, along with Chris Chetty, that they have and had pieces together to where they were going to run this thing. And what happened was they let Arena Football Management run it. And so they kind of let hands off. Now, from the looks of it, they got the TikTok account, but Arena Football Management didn't exactly give them over the Instagram or the X account. The Facebook account's been inactive. The original one, like the OG one from the original iteration, it's been active since May of 2023. So Hutton, you can argue, didn't even have it either at that point. Like, that's just how it's been. But you got to move on. Eventually, you got to tell people what's going on. Like, even if it is the worst case scenario, you reset accounts. I am pro put new accounts in if you have no other avenues to explore and there's no way you're going to get something. So this was the right choice. The X account's a little inactive, and I think there might be something up with that. Again, that was Hutton's leadership under that one. So might be looking for a different route at some point. I'm not sure, but the Facebook and the Instagram and the TikTok and the YouTube, all that's league run for the new management. And at least that's getting stuff out there now.
Yeah, that's good too, and hope like it'll be interesting if they do in the other ones because for some reason I can't remember the Facebook version of Twitter's name right now. I don't know if they're going to do that. And plus, each social media has a different type of group because you kind of got more of the more old school type of crowd on Facebook, new school on X, and then and also in between of some other stuff like. I don't know if they'll do anything like Bumble or something like that, but I don't know. So it just depends.
Yeah, it is what it is. But nonetheless, that's my point is the league is doing things right in the direction. Social media is one thing, but again, I talk with people a lot near every day, and I like the changes I'm seeing. I like what I'm seeing. And again, there's still hurdles. I'm not going to sit here and tell you there aren't, but the stuff they're doing is in the right direction, in my opinion. So, and again, this is a guy that, I was cautiously optimistic about the Arena Football Management version
I
and
don't
got
think it's
burned
going
by
to
it.
be that, Chris.
No.
No.
That
Oh
is
no.
Chris. What you crazy person?
No.
Chris, you make me laugh.
No, I'm surprised that's actually still on. Actually, to be quite honest. uh, yeah, though it's going to be. It's interesting to see because now they got all these people in place. Though, quite honestly, it seemed like Lee Hutton tried to combine all those positions that they just hired into one and just didn't really pull it up to the full potential, in my opinion.
No.
Now, I guess we're going to go with the first game here on Friday night, and let's just say that was an upset. But though I have been saying that Nashville, when you see their stuff on paper, that team did not match what the record was.
No. And keep in mind, one of the most important free agent pickups of the year to me in the entire league is getting Randy Hippard back behind center. Yes, it's been 5 years, but you saw it a month ago, Will. He came in there, they stabilized essentially a position that had been having troubles and injury issues the entire time and has elevated what is an explosive passing attack if you put the right person behind center. And I think that coupled with the fact their defense front five was already good, but their secondary has been playing up to snuff the last 2 games they played, like the best they played all year. That's dangerous. I mean, that you get any stops like they did, and you saw what happened with Orlando, overwhelming pressure coupled with an offense that just every turn and step of the way were maybe I'd argue 3 steps ahead of what Orlando was trying to do. It was a clinic on Friday night, Will. An absolute clinic by arena standards.
Yeah, Drew Powell didn't really do much like through the air because there were, I don't know, I was amazed how many times they caused turnovers for Orlando, and including, like, to me, my defensive player of the game was actually the nose Ezekiel Rose for
Yes.
the Nashville Cats. And that, I like the nose position. I played nose guard in a 3-4, and if I did play arena, I probably would be that position probably. And he was him on there, like bull rushing and causing fumbles and recovering fumbles. It was like, dear Lord, no one can stop him now.
No. No, Zeke is a monster in the middle and has been putting up godly numbers all year. That sack, and this is unofficial stats according to talking with Zeke on interview. If memory serves, he's now up to 9 to 10 sacks right now, depending on the error that I have in my calculations. So he's been absolutely a stud in the middle. And again, him and Reggie Howard, and Reggie Howard's a guy that we know should be outdoors right now, without a doubt. But those two definitely are making a case to where they can be linemen next year that are going to get evaluated, hopefully for the UFL. I'd love to see these guys go outside. Zeke's bull rush is incredible, and he has been able to bury centers like 2 to 3 yards back in the backfield and just cause pockets to completely shred apart. And it showed again in this one, something that they weren't as successful with in their first matchup, that I think their defense just came in and that was what they wanted to do, was just be the disruptors and not let Drew Powell get comfortable. Because yes, Drew put up his yards, but you can see the stat line all day. Only 2 touchdowns. They had a few 4-and-outs that they had happen during this contest. An interception, excellent athletic play by Derek Jones at the beginning of the second half. They just came out to set the tone and control the lines. And if that's Nashville, the one you're going to see right now going to the semis, I mean, Billings obviously has the people to counter these good fronts, but you're going to have to play your best ball. This is a team that's playing its best right now because it got the pieces together at the right time.
Yeah, it's one of those, like, you get the right momentum at the late of the game. This happens at any level of football. High school, college, pro, semi-pro, it doesn't matter. We've seen this story before, especially in NFL playoffs and all that stuff too. And like, I hope to see some of these guys in the UFL though. One thing I want to talk about, because I'm still a little bit confused, are they still in Ironman rules or kind of halfway with it now?
No, Ironman is the mandatory version of Ironman is thrown out. So they originally were doing it. And then they ran into personnel issues. And I think just because of some of the chaoticness of the early weeks and changes that happened, they switched back. So that being said, and I will say this, they are running a specialist style. Anyone can run specialist and do unlimited substitutions. But there are teams that are still taking advantage of those Ironman rules for guys that can play Ironman. So, for example, Billings has Derek Harvey on their roster, who is an incredible Ironman player, great secondary specialist, and is a solid support role receiver on that team. That's a guy that definitely you don't mess with that. If you have a good Ironman guy that can fill in that role, why not have at it? But they did loosen those restrictions of the traditional only one substitution fourth and back that you originally had in the 87 iteration that ran those rules up until about, I believe, 2006 was the original run for that rule set. Don't fully quote me on that, but I know it was the 2000s they moved on and went to the specialist system. They're essentially back there now.
Yeah, I can kind of understand it a little bit because I think with all the stuff, chaotic stuff with the Lee Hutton stuff, and like they thought this was going to happen, but then all this kind of blew up in their faces, and it's kind of like, okay, and now we're having problems with the roster and stuff because I believe there was quite a few injuries, and then I believe there was like 1, 2, 3. There were 3 to 4 players that signed to NFL camps, if I remember correctly. So that kind of hurt them a little bit because with arena football, there is no practice squad type of situation with this.
No.
These are basically all street free agents during this time.
Yeah, I mean, you get like 25-man rosters that you can have, but it's not like a guaranteed practice squad or anything like that. You're more doing, specialty drills, maybe 7-on-7s at max. But yeah, I mean, you carry essentially enough as you need. That is the arena way. I think of it as almost like a basketball roster that it's, maybe you get those 20s or so, but unlike basketball, everyone's there. It's not, there's no G League, there's no secondary practice squad, stuff like that. Maybe you formulate one for practices, but it's not as common. So, yeah, I mean, you take what you can. Injuries present themselves, and keep in mind something that also Iron Man limits. And you know, it is a challenge. But Iron Man with injuries in traditional set, if you're in a game and you have injuries to multiple positions where you have to sub out, well, the sub rules are going to eventually screw you over if you have multiple guys get injured, or say you have a quick injury. Keep in mind. So, say you have your quarterback go down with like, I don't know, say they get like a bruise or contusion on their thigh that maybe could have been more severe. They take him off. They put their backup QB in. Well, say you then have him ready to go. You pull back in the starter. Backup QB goes off. Well, if that starter gets injured again, you're out two quarterbacks. So, you can't, because then eventually the backup QB is then dead. And if you have to take off another quarterback off of the arena turf, they're then dead too. Then you're just going to be running possibly a third emergency quarterback. You do designate that, but still, that's where you run a risk. It's not common, but it has happened.
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering if they need to have just have local players, kind of like the NHL has with that emergency goalie situation. Like they have usually if somehow the main goalie and the back goalie is injured, they usually just have someone that's not associated with either team dress up real quickly and some type of unnamed jersey and go in for that team. And that has happened before many times. And somehow it even comes and save the game and win the game. So I don't know if they need to think about something like that, because just in case, because football is a very violent sport and you just never know what could happen. But I don't know. It's something maybe I don't know if anyone has thought the idea of that, but it's something to consider, I would think.
I'm not sure. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if someone's thrown that around. I mean, the NFL's now, the NFL and company are now doing the emergency QB. So it's not crazy to assume. Even in the old arena sets, it's not common, like for the Iron Man rules, to have ever had that happen. And honestly, arena quarterbacks, more so often you're getting the ball out really quick and avoiding a lot of hits. It's not common you see guys get completely annihilated into the wall that are quarterbacks, because a lot of those guys are generally just getting the ball out really fast. It's a little different when you got teams that run indoor and more have like guys like a Matt Struck or even a Charles McCollum or a Jamario Benson that get outside and maybe they want to run. So maybe you get a little more availability to injury in that regard. It's more possible, but more often than not, injuries are pretty low for QBs in this sport because they're really getting the ball out quick. They aren't taking as many hits as an outdoor quarterback.
Yeah, though I always kind of wonder, because it has happened before, if somehow because the teams only carry one kicker, but I bet they have someone do backup stuff if they can. It just because even with arena, the kicking game is kind of important.
It is. It is. I don't think teams plan for that though, because kickers usually, again, low impact guys. Credit returns. You hope to not use your kicker, but that is a possibility. Anytime I've seen it done though, whether it's like AFL, NAL, or IFL, they generally just find whoever has the second best kicking. And a lot of teams, what they'll do is they'll kind of have a few of them to test out the waters and maybe get an emergency guy if they need it. Because all you got to do is squib kick. If you can do a squib kick and someone can keep that thing inbounds and kind of get it enough down turf, you can still do a kickoff. You just lose the ability for a deuce. You lose the ability for a bar ball, so you possibly can get a quick turnover off a bad return, and you lose potentially the field position battle in ways, which though doesn't matter as much in 50-yard setups, it still does matter if you get to start at say your 20 or maybe midfield on a good return compared to say you kick it deep off the net and your return game's really good where you can stop at the 10. It's an extra 10 yards defense that you get to play and a little less pressure on you per drive.
Yeah, though the one thing I hate is that when usually you get that injury, it's usually like a pulled muscle out of nowhere with a kicker that happens, or even with any football position, because all of a sudden, you do a certain move, it's like, uh-oh, what the hell happened there?
Right.
So it's Like, I haven't had that in football. I've had that when I threw shot put and track, and I was like, that ain't good type of thing.
Oh, spaghetti. Oh, damn.
Yeah, pulled a right, like my right muscle on my hip. So yeah, it's kind of interesting to do that. And this was a, like, even though it was still kind of one side, it was good. And I like, in your opinion, how did, like, with the, because when we saw some of the YouTube broadcasts, there were ads. Like, how do you think the ad breaks, media timeouts mixed with this iteration of Arena Football League this time?
Well, I don't think it was too crazy. I mean, to be frank, if you watch any of the local teams, like say you watch an IFL game from Arizona or a Jacksonville game, they do media breaks still. You know, there are media breaks for in arena ads and even their local TV partners. So it's not too crazy. I've seen like Albany's been doing media breaks. Credit their media breaks, they still keep it in house, so it's a little different. You're watching like more of the in between kind of stuff that's in the venue. So I guess it's a little different because you don't get to see like the cool like I guess promo stuff that the team gets to put together that I do get a chuckle from time to time. But for the most part, they do schedule pretty consistent media breaks even without. It's just done differently with a YouTube because are you really putting out to television locally? Or are you just taking the stadium feed and taking immediate timeout because you do have to take those timeouts to do your competition stuff or your promos and your activations?
Yeah, I will say though, it was just kind of interesting because I never really see like media timeout from the official. It's like, oh, they're doing that. Okay, so, because
Right. Well, it was weird. I will admit it was weird hearing them because I'll say, Will, it's weird hearing good audio mixing on an arena game too. You don't always get that. There are teams that do good. I got to highlight them. Albany does really good. Jacksonville, Arizona for the Rattlers. I've seen those are teams that I really think they put that like quality broadcast that could be TV made from their facilities. But those are fewer and far between still. And a lot of times what happens, it's not often the camera that's bad. There's still good enough cameras, Will. The audio quality is one of the things that irks me the most. Can I hear them right? Do I hear distortion? Are your mics loud enough? Are they too hot? Can I hear the which you don't realize how much you appreciate that until you go onto a game and you can hear the umpire clearly say what he's saying, as well as say media timeout. Because I'm sorry, that's just not a normal thing with arena and indoor streams outside of like broadcast TV. Like there's some that do it well, but the majority do not. And that's, again, it just highlights how much it's nice to have quality production value being done for these playoffs. I really, for me, a viewer of this game, it's a hardcore viewer. I'm just glad to have that nice ceiling sort of broadcast that does put it up to that level.
yeah, and like it was good to see like with Ari and Muntz like talking about like, hey, this is how they do it. You get to see during the challenges though. I was perplexed every time the Nashville coach challenged. I was like, why is he challenging that? So, and then
Yeah, I mean,
he lost both challenges in the first half.
right. Yeah, Dean Kokinos, I will say some of the challenges, it was more just, I think, desperation types, even though they were in control the entire way. I mean, Orlando did try a challenge later in that game too, but again, they needed to even get anything close. You know, it's just like we've seen this throughout the season as well. You know, use them if you got them. You got two. So, Dean, unfortunately, I think used them at the wrong place, wrong time. Even with better cameras and angles than you'll ever find for reviews in other streams online.
And I will say the one thing I did like is they had like bulleted points of like the rules and stuff. And when they were explaining, because remember now it's not, because it's similar with the UFL in a way with the points like going for like 2, 3, and 4. Mm-hmm. Still one on the field goal, unfortunately, but but though technically you get more, the kicker gets either 2 or 1, or we'll discuss this with the next game, actually have -1. And that's in a certain situation. And we'll go with the next one with, of course, in the Central Division, you got the Southwest Kansas Storm and the Salina Liberty. Honestly, when I watched this game, it was like, is Salina trying to lose this game? There was like so many times I'm like, what the heck are they doing?
Oh, don't get me started. That one, I thought that they had it in the bag in terms of momentum standpoint going into the second half. And I know that excellent hook and ladder from Southwest Kansas was incredible to end the half. But even then, I thought Salina had kind of figured out an offensive scheme. They were getting deep ball passes, which, if you've been following the Liberty, they do not specialize in deep ball throws. They are a run first, mid range passing team, and they were getting Demarius Washington wide open. All of a sudden, something fell off the tracks, and I don't know exactly if it was just timing. Maybe they only were getting deep ball passes completed that were being open in the first half, and second half Southwest Kansas might have just locked down and said, if they're going to do that, that's the only thing we're going to stop them at and see if they can beat us in the middle. And they didn't. And, they were very close to letting it go. But the thing is, if you have a team sputtering on one side, you can't be sputtering on the opposite side either. And unfortunately, too little, too late, and too many mistakes from a squad in Southwest Kansas and in a quarterback in Matt Struck that it does feel like one got away. I imagine Gary Thomas is sitting back home in Dodge City going, we really could have had this game, and we really did just fumble the bag, so to speak.
Yeah, there was dear Lord, how many bad snaps did Salina have? About 3 to 5, if I remember correctly.
Well, Salina had 2 that I can recall, and then Southwest Kansas
became a safety. I remember that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
And you have Salina, who is able to get that touchdown off a bad snap, which would have been the game-winning drive if Southwest Kansas doesn't start off with that drive in such a train wreck fashion. And the fact Struck unfortunately had a earlier fumble that really blew open the doors on the game in the first half. So you just can't have those mistakes in this game. That's the thing. And again, Charles McCollum almost tried to give this game away because the score that went for a tie, if you remember that possession prior for Salina, that was an interception to Terrell Warner. It was he had 4 to 5 seconds, Will, and threw a pick. That's not going to get you things,
And then the thing that boggled my mind, because we know Ari and Munch were complaining about the whole kicking thing, and then right before Southwest Kansas' last possession, the Salina kicker kicked the ball outside of nets, causing Southwest Kansas to get 1 point. I'm like,
I know.
I was like, oh dear Lord, why?
That's the first thing I thought when I didn't see it hit the net. I was like, don't tell me, and it wasn't even anywhere upward. I'm like, don't tell me they just shanked that. And sure enough, they pan right to Aiden, and he's like this. You're like, oh my God, this man just gave a point away.
And don't forget, there were times that the officials still had their mics on when the Salina coach was arguing with their officials. It was and of course, Ari was like, well, you get to hear this now. This is the first time we'd heard anything like this in the Arena Football League game. It was kind of funny in my opinion.
In Orlando, we had the same thing though too. Remember, Dean Kokinos was arguing about a touchdown catch or a safety that wasn't, because remember, Orlando's got those weird backboards where there's no padding. It's a bit of a gap because of the arena configuration. And so you could hear the first 2 minutes of them arguing otherwise. And that was an interesting moment of broadcast humor right there. But it was nice to hear the insight of why the ref was making the call, in a more civil manner, mind you. It wasn't like they were completely losing it at each other, but it was a funny little follies type of moment,
Yeah. And I did like how they kind of compare, because they did say that both these teams is kind of it's not like the old style of arena football play that we're all used to. Even though there wasn't much rushing with the first game wasn't, but there was with this one, with the pitches. And I don't know, these teams throw a lot of wide receiver screens that whenever they do and stuff. And they kind of mentioned this is kind of like a college version of arena football play. I was like, oh, I kind of see what they mean like that. It kind of because you kind of see some stuff with the option, the veer, and all sorts of type of stuff like that.
Right. Well, I think what they were trying to do was, they wanted to try and associate what they're seeing here because keep in mind, Coach Muncie in particular, this isn't the traditional arena football that those two play. If he were to tell you, you don't play shotgun in old school arena ball, you play from under the center. You don't play RPO. You don't play receiver screens do happen. I've seen them in the past, but they're not as common. It's all about the downfield passing game. So it's a little strange. Like I said, that was something that fascinated me, was seeing old school guys or guys like Ari Wolf that are used to seeing the old school methodology of arena, seeing the influence of indoor and outdoor coaches coming into the sport. And clearly that's shown up in recent years because, all the old school AFL guys, the only options were those indoor leagues. And yeah, it kind of just evolved over the last 5 years. So now you have different methodologies and kind of a pick and choose on how you want to play, similar to the outdoor game.
Yeah, and also I was like disappointed because there was a chance for Connor Davis to score a touchdown and he dropped it.
I know. I was hoping our guy from the Gamblers was going to get that TD and he flat, but that was just that kind of day for Southwest Kansas, man. Like just stuff wouldn't go their way. Remember, they couldn't score TDs, so they went for field goals. And I say this to everybody I've said, I don't know if I've told you this before. I hate when people go for field goals in 50-yard football in indoor or arena style, because touchdown should always be your prerogative. And I know in outdoor it is too, but in outdoor you have more space, more yards, and more things can go wrong to me with making kind of quick timing decisions. And maybe the quarterback's not always looking to that kind of that quick slant route or the route that'll get your ball out in 3 seconds or less. Indoor, in arena, you have to. And I just feel like it's a sport designed to be aggressive. So seeing Southwest Kansas take 3 field goals, one that they missed, by the way, they make 2. I mean, that's right there. If we're going just by base touchdowns, that is a swing of 15 points that is left on the table because they couldn't go for a 4th down. And even then, even if one of these isn't converted, you get more points in the overall scores. So I didn't understand it. And I think that's more of an indoor methodology. Personally, if you're in this space with arena methodology, that's one aggressive part of coaching in this game that you have to take. I really don't like being conservative in play calls. And again, this was situational where it's not even the end of the half. You're taking field goals inside your 10-yard line. Any decent arena team should be able to score on 4th and goal, more so than an outdoor team. So it just drove me nuts. And, at the end when they lost, I'm like, well, not sure what to tell you. You could have gone for some 4th downs and probably made this different, but that's how it went. Bad mistakes and conservative coaching, and that's what happened.
Yeah, and of course, if like you and I played the Arena Football League game, sometimes we do the field goals like if it's like way back in the end zone, but not.
Well, sure. Like if you're buried back there, it's basically a punt. I don't mind that. Okay. But if you're within inside your 10, if you're at midfield, by the way, even if you're own 20, go for it. Like field goals are harder in this sport. Like unless you have someone like a Mark Orozco or a Bailey Giffen like that, who can kick deuces, kick XPs, and kick field goals on a pretty consistent basis, and even then I still kind of go, I don't know about that. Just go. I usually like the 4th downs. I think there's a better probability of you getting more points out of these drives if you go for a 4th down. So, it was just one thing that stuck with me in the game that, I've talked about elsewhere outside of this, even on the AFL's YouTube when we've done the recap of this. And it's, kind of make your bed when you choose the conservative options if you can't keep ahead of your opponent.
Yeah. And like you say, this was the game that ended on interception, correct?
No, actually, this is the one that ended with Chris Platt ending 4 yards away from pay dirt, and the drive prior, Henry Kellogg scores a fumble into the end zone for 6 that basically buried Southwest Kansas. It was tied 34-34. Southwest Kansas has the ball, 55 seconds on the clock. And sure, they can go down quick and Salina might get a possession, but keep in mind, it was all Southwest Kansas momentum at this point. Goes three and out. 4th down happens. It's about 4th and 14.
Yeah, now I remember.
Snap into the end zone.
Yeah. We're going to take a little break. Then we're going to discuss a little bit outside Arena Football League. Be right back.
Same great taste. Yes. Same great taste. Same great taste.
Okay, so discussing just a little bit outside the Arena Football here, like we cover a little bit of the Arena League here. They only have one game. That's one thing I I get the buys, but it's kind of like hard to be like, you go from 1 and then you go to 2, 1 to 2, 1 to 2 with them. And this game is a little bit more closer now because of all the stuff that's going on. Because with just having 4 teams, the gap just getting closer and closer and closer. And that happened with Duluth beating Ozark 67-60. And because when watching the Southwest Kansas, Salina, and then the Arena League, they kind of have similar styles because they do the shotgun, and dear Lord, they do a lot of pitches. So many pitches.
They do.
Like, even I'm like, okay, like, pretty soon these pitches are going to get a little bit more too boring here. But, like, with this new league, to me, it's like, I see some good things, but it's like, there needs to be a little bit more with the play, like, design top into the well, in my opinion.
Right. Well, I mean, it's a little harder. They did constrain the roster and the player on field size. So, they are, but keep in mind that to me, I think they're trying to incentivize more of a 7-on-7 style with high passing still, but there should be run options where you can more directly run at the line with the more space and less down linemen personally. So I've been a little bit surprised at times, but I think the league's finding its way. Will, it's been a unique year. I know they've had a few challenges with one of the venues. I believe it was in Kansas City.
Oh God, yeah. I don't
know
what. Yeah, me and Luke Miller had that for that week before the game. I don't know what was. It was something with the flooring. It wasn't really clear. And then the Arena League puts it like we still want to be in this arena and stuff. So it's like, okay, I'm trying to figure like, did someone take a hammer to the flooring? What the heck went on? I don't recall an earthquake. So it's like,
yeah, I mean, there's a plethora of things that could have happened. Maybe found repairs or some issue came up that was a wider issue and an inspection, hard to tell. I do agree with the league though, that, I know that their strategy is small markets, obviously, like smaller than even some mid-range small markets by standards that you and I would say is mid-range. But Kansas City being their largest market and them being the only team in town in a market that did adopt arena football back in the day, I agree. You kind of want us to keep the team around, and the brand seems to be from what I've seen and people that I've talked to that are fans of the Goats, the brand seems to be received really well. So I don't think they're going anywhere. Just get your issues corrected. And, if that's the only thing you've had all season, you're still playing games. I mean, you gotta be feeling pretty good.
Yeah, there's like probably a lot of different arenas in the Kansas City, and they're in there because that's where their home base is.
Right.
Like, and then Ozark, they got their tackle box and all that stuff. Like, trust me, for that franchise to get the Bass Pro Shop sponsorship and all that stuff.
So clutch. Clutch.
And like I said on the previous show, they were giving away a full-size battery-powered golf cart. Like, you don't, for a league of that size, to give away something like that.
Well, I think that's also smart given the demographic that lives in the Ozarks, to be honest with you. That you would know better than I, but like that, yeah, for the people that live out there, like having a golf cart is like a status symbol thing. Like just folks that live in those type of communities. So that's a big deal. That is a big prize to get out there.
Yeah, I had a fraternity brother in mid-Missouri when I went to Central Memphis, had a golf cart when we drove around in Fayette, and yeah, that was kind of a status in a way. So yeah, so I kind of get that. But yeah, like, I think it's fun. They're getting growth every week, which is good. They're still going to be on YouTube. I just don't like. I see the only local games are on this Springfield one in the area, so that's kind of good. And like, things are going good for Iowa. The one thing that still boggles my mind, like Duluth, they're just signing new players. Like the week before, they signed 7 new players. Dang. Like that's even. For arena, that's even high.
Yes, so, I'm glad you said it because I would have said the same thing. That is pretty high turnover for that for just a week.
Yeah, so, but they're just fine for seeing because everyone's in the playoff. They're just like, because I could honestly see Duluth like towering over either Ozark or KC because like it's the competition, the parity is getting so close now. It's like, it's going to be interesting. They only have 3 more weeks of the regular season. Another thing to talk about is like, because we're always seeing like because with how the season of the Arena Football League happened, you're kind of wondering, okay, do they stay or will they might expand and stuff? And Now we have two arena leagues that merged with
Yes,
the
we did.
NAL and the AIF. And I remember the AIF, that's where the River City Raiders used to be for like when they were brand new in there. Of course, that team didn't do well. That's more on the ownership. Let me be clear on that. But it's not just AIF, it's also the AIF2, and they just reorganized, I believe, last year or the year before.
Well, I think, are you talking the AAL too?
The AIF, not the.
Well, okay, I'm just double checking because I know the minors joined and that was AAL. So
Okay.
just want to double check we're on the same page. But this is the second iteration of the AIF.
Yeah.
Since it came back. And I think this is probably the logical conclusion. Look, I don't mean to be this way, but like there was a lot of hype on the AIF at the beginning of the year that I didn't understand the hype for it, because it basically is that same level where I don't think you're going to compete with the IFL or the NAL. And yes, the AFL is now going through its own thing. I'm not going to even try to comprehend that because I'm going to put it in its own separate box. But if we're talking the two leagues that were brands that stuck around and have had consistent bases the longest and have had a little bit more stability at times, in the early going, the AIF was a third, and you saw they had some troubles with a few teams this year and had to let some people go. There were rumors of other teams that might have had some issues. I know Cedar Rapids was a problematic team, it sounds like, and they moved on.
And don't even get me started with the Mississippi Raiders.
Mississippi Raiders were another one. Again, we saw Baymont is now not part of this merger, along with Amarillo, which I've heard rumblings that those teams have to figure some things out. So it just made sense. You have three teams that I think have had ties to being in the NAL, funny enough, in a different part. Remember, Columbus, former NAL team. So they got removed by the NAL's old ownership and old structure of ownership from a few years ago. They went to basically go to the AIFA, won a championship in the AIFA, won the AIF championship, and now they get to go back to the league. But keep in mind, the league has also changed how it's run. It doesn't pay as much as the IFL. It used to. It does not do that anymore. So it's a little more affordable to run. My understanding was Columbus was always kind of one of those cost control teams. This seems to fit their bill a lot better, if I'm being honest. I would imagine if you're talking Harrisburg and the Corpus Christi Tritons, probably similar basis. They're newer teams. They want some stability and are also kind of in that cost bracket right now. I think it just fits them really well. It's a logical move, personally. I think that's all I can give you, Will. It is a logical conclusion, is the best way I can put it.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see, because like sometimes because we all do the UFL, like it was smart for the UFL and the XFL to merge. And even I'm thinking like, boy, there's a lot of arena football leagues here. Like sooner or later, it's going to like pretty soon it's like going to eat each other up. And like, heck, don't even get me started how many there are in the state of Texas alone sometimes.
Oh yeah, you get a lot of the smaller ones too that are in Texas, and the AAL is where the miners are coming from, and they've been in kind of that same space for years now. So, you also got Western Michigan Ironmen who have been doing their own thing. They join leagues or create smaller leagues. I think there's the Great Lakes League now, I believe, that they play in and have formulated. So like you're always going to find that level, and Columbus is a team that tried to do that. Again, they've been around the block. They're one of the longest running teams in this space and have been around the block and have that pull as a team that knows how to do business. It's just similar to what we saw with Jacksonville last year. Look, you lose enough teams and you got some uncertainty here, and you got a league that's also, by the way, in its own interest, trying to get to a double-digit mark, which is a big statement. If you can get double digits, that you get a lot of respect. And from the way the NAL is talking and rumbling, they want to get to 10 teams. And you can even see right now the Cedar Rapids team that's going to replace the River Kings, the Power, which is a different ownership group. They're already posting NAL content on their website. Pretty certain they're going to be the next NAL team. So they're trying to get to 10, Will. It just makes sense. And they want to stabilize and kind of show publicly the stability. Will it last? not sure to say, the NAL's history, including this year as well, is filled with teams that depart or have to take a hiatus. So really, it is to be determined. And I don't mean to say it as like in the sense that, it's, whatnot about certain people leaving. No, I followed the NAL for damn near 3 seasons. It's the way of the business. Now, has that changed? Well, hopefully it changes, but it's going to be a challenge. It's history has repeated itself every single year the NAL has existed, is all I can say.
And I saw the map of if they stick with the 9 teams, and there's like a huge gap in the middle. A very huge gap.
Well,
Like,
Boise,
I know it's like in that huge gap, Missouri's in there, Kansas, Iowa. It's like, dear Lord, it's like I can see if they do this with the divisions. I don't know what the 10th team will be, because it'll be interesting, because you just don't know. And like, I'm glad this is happening in a way, because it helps like the teams that are going well survive and thrive. So it'll be interesting to see how they do for next season.
Right. And I want to add on that the portfolio makes sense for these teams. Again, like adding Corpus Christi adds more of that more of that Western skew that you get with Omaha, as well as Sioux City, where they like that middle America, like back in the CIF days. Keep in mind, Omaha having Ricky Burtz being one of the co-founders of the CIF, that's like their bread and butter, is that mid-America space. So they did that. They have Idaho as an anchor on the West Coast. They just got to keep them going. Same with Colorado, more westwardly. And then now with the additions they've had primarily with the merger and the West Virginia Miners, or the Wheeling Miners, my bad, out of West Virginia, you add 3 new teams on the East Coast in Columbus, Georgia, in Wheelings, West Virginia, and also in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, that do help complement the Carolina Cobras, who have been traveling more to mid-America most of the year to travel. So it does help. Traveling and containing travel costs, Will, you know this very well. That is like one of the prime 2 things that arena teams have to worry the most about every year, is how do I get these teams out where I'm going, especially if I have a wide U.S. map. This does help a lot of these squads now. And again, it's a logical merger. It just makes sense with who's joining.
Now, is that because I recall a West Virginia arena team that did go and come back. Do they play in that one unique arena, or am I thinking of a different team?
Are you talking West Banco?
Yeah.
That is where they are playing for the Miners, because the former Rough Riders played in West Banco under AAL2. Remember, that team was supposed to join the NAL until COVID happened. And when that happened, the team had to go on hiatus, and then eventually things just didn't work out. But Wheeling is a good market. It showed it several years ago. They just need to get a ownership in there, is the thing. So it's my favorite addition, honestly, out of the ones that are coming to the NAL, is that ownership group. I'll be honest.
Yeah, because I do remember that team, because it did come to St. Louis, St. Charles against the River City Raiders. Their offensive linemen, no one could beat them. No one. I don't know what happened to those players, because I'm trying to recall, like, if after that team folded, did they go somewhere else? Because that offensive line during that time for that team was unstoppable.
Yeah, no, it was. It absolutely was. Not 100%, honestly, with the River City Raiders. That was a bit before my time getting in, is the only thing I can say.
Yeah. I guess we'll go with the 2 playoff games here. Of course, they're both on Saturday, but very weird times just because of how it's located.
Right.
Because you got Salina versus Albany. It's a 2:30 game, 2:30 Eastern, 1:30 Central. Then the Nashville versus Billings. That won't be done until late in the evening. We got Saturday night arena football at 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central. And it's like, hold up. And it's like, boy, like the first game, I just see Albany beating Salina with all the mistakes they made. I just don't see any way how Salina beats Albany. I could be wrong, though, Zach.
No, and I'm kind of in that same vein. There would need to be much improved play offensively to make it work. Now, Salina does, again, imposing defense. Freddie McGee is an incredible defensive back who is leading the league with 10 sacks through the regular and postseason. Incredible year. And their secondary has had pieces along with the front line that can cause pressure, but I don't trust their offense whatsoever right now. unless Charles McCollum reverts back to what he was maybe 4 or 5 years ago, he has not looked like himself this year. And they have made it work, but they've also had a lot of churn and rotation at the quarterback to try and find who works best. Jamario Benson hasn't been the guy either, and they've used him for gadget plays because he's fast, but clearly McCollum gives them their best option. I just don't know if he's enough at this stage in his career. Incredible career arena-wise, no doubt, but this is not the same Charles McCollum that we've seen that won an NAL championship back in 2018. So I do lean Albany. I think they're putting the pieces together. They also added key pieces into this. Isaiah Scott coming over from the West Texas folding and being signed on adds on to what is a just dumbly good receiving core. So
I just don't see Selena stopping Darius Prince's
there's that too. I mean, Darius is at 34 years old. This man is still looking like he could just keep playing until into his 40s right now. He has looked phenomenal still.
Yeah, so like Albany beating Selena, that once again 2:30 Eastern, 1:30 Central on the CBS Sports Network. So, and then of course we got probably the game for the semifinals to play for Arena Bowl, because I could see either team beating each other, to be quite frank, because how Nashville's doing. Then Billings has always been good the whole year, and I'm actually like for both games what the crowds would be for Albany and Billings because of this
I mean the end of the season here I imagine is going to be a nice crowd for Metro Park out there in Billings, Montana. I am very much anticipating a matchup that is going to come down the wire. Out of the two, this one is the one that I feel on a late Saturday night, East Coast wise, and what is your regular evening scheduled program on the West Coast. It will look good in West Coast prime time. And I think it's going to be a down to the wire, who makes the other flinch the most type of game. Can you knock Randy Hippard off his game? No one's been able to do that. Now, they did a little bit their last time. Billings was able to get Randy Hippard to kind of get out of sync in the early going. But keep in mind, it was his first game back, and it was the first half of that game back. Second half, they figured things out and came back and won on an incredible last-second fashion out there. Thing is, can Billings this time, can they hit the ground running when they find opportunities, take advantage of them, and then keep the gas pedal down? You can't have mistakes with a veteran arena quarterback who has the caliber that he has in Randy Hippard with a game like this, because there's too many good receivers on that offensive side of the ball. And in particular, Billings is going to have to answer, and Nashville's defense is playing its best ball and is looking like arguably the best defensive unit in the league right now at the right time. Going to be a tough game. Going to be a thrower of a game, though, Will.
Yeah, and I'm like excited for this. And the thing, though, even though arena football is not good for known for rushing, but we know that if somehow a rushing game does appear, because it can happen. I know it's happened on at least for that Albany player, right? So it can happen, but I like this one. It will be interesting if Nashville comes with, like I said, they do not match their records.
No, not at all. Not at all.
And it will be kind of interesting because, like we said, if we both have Albany beats Lee, because another thing I want to talk about, because for Arena Bowl 33, because it was announced they're going to be playing, it's kind of like in a mall type setting, but called the American Dream. Like I said last week, it kind of reminded me kind of somewhat in between when they had the Great American Mall for Monday Night Nitro in the 90s setting, combine it with the Hammerstein Ballroom in New York a little bit. It's kind of interesting. Hold on, let me put some photos of it here.
Yeah, please. There you go.
This is the one with the hockey, because it's at a hockey rink, so it has stuff there. Then we had someone do some designs here on X here. That's one thing. It's not going to exactly look like this. These are just renderings and stuff like that.
Yeah,
it doesn't have the netting and stuff.
I would ignore the outdoor post. That is not going to happen. There's no way they're going to go in with that.
And there's with the AFL thing in the middle, because I'm interested to see how it looks like with this type of arena type setting, because it is interesting. Because I have the ticket information, because they have 3 levels, both standing and sitting, and bleachers in the bottom. Like, I know that, like, I agree with Luke Miller, like someone that we both know. It's probably better to get the level 2 seating or standing seats so you can see everything. Because I just don't know. Like, I haven't been there. It's an interesting type of setup for the Arena Bowl 33.
I think it is definitely something that is the most unique I have ever seen for a championship. The thing with American Dream is it is a project that is it's supposed to be the East Coast version of Mall of America. That is the entire reason they are building it up that way. It has a theme park in it, a water park. It's got tons of shopping that they're getting new vendors every day. And that space is being used for specialty events. And I think the thing is, it's a venue that wants them and that would give them gives them a good place to play. And I think is still central enough located in that, area of New Jersey, right? Not too far outside New York. It's East Rutherford. So, you still can bring in people that way. But yeah, if you're going to sit down, which there are going to be seats, there's going to be some standing rooms, there's going to be the level suites they're going to do on the different levels. Yeah, I would go second row. That's going to be your best look, honestly, because standing row, probably lower to the bottom, probably won't look as good. But, they have pulled this off. Harlem Globetrotters are going to have a residency there. They've had the USA and Canadian teams play there as well. So this isn't the first time they have options, and it's unique, but, still should look good on TV because they have the broadcast angles to do it.
Yeah, like I'm interested to see, and especially like we both predicted Albany, you're going to have probably a lot of fans from Albany, and like I think it would, like, if Albany somehow wins Arena Bowl 33 if they get there, because remember, with all the stuff that happened with the Empire and Antonio Brown, it would be a nice little bit story to end for that whole travesty that happened a year ago.
Exactly. Even them getting to Arena Bowl is like a phoenix rising from the ashes type of story, which the
are
community
called the Firebirds.
I know, and that's why I said that. I purposely. I'm glad you caught on. No, it'll be good. And look, that team, that community, it's come out honestly from what I've seen, and just gauging the crowds and talking to people out there, because I got a lot of buddies out in the capital region, and I'll tell you, the community seems to embrace this team more than they ever had with the Empire, even with the revival. I'm not talking 2019 Empire. I'm talking since the revival, like this ownership trying to revive teams. This is the best they've ever done, and I think it's growing. So that's a good positive sign for a squad that already does a really good job being a professional run organization. So, hopefully, if for them, it'd be a great send off if they were to do it. But credit whoever they face on the other side of that bracket. They've lost to Billings, and this ain't the same Nashville team they played earlier in the season.
So. Yeah, so it'll be like, I think either way, we're going to get a very good matchup for Arena Bowl 33. And also, in my mind, a good way to end on what we would call one of the most weirdest, chaotic turnaround type of first seasons ever for rebrand I have ever seen in a league, especially when it comes to a turn of football, dear Lord.
Yes. Very, very much so. You are not wrong. Crazy season. They get an off season to recoup and get a full year with the management that they want to build. I think that they are going in the right direction, and I'm glad to see that they are doing things for the most part in the right direction.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see for all season because, like, as of right now, they have 8 teams, possibly 10 next year because of what was the original plan. Let me be clear. What was the original plan by what is now the more disgraced Lee Hutton? So we don't know what the new plan is. Because another thing, too, I almost forgot the streaming worldwide with the DAZN group.
You're talking DAZN?
DAZN, yeah. It's DAZN on their abbreviation and on their Twitter.
No. I've called it DAZN in the past as well. You are not the first to do this. You will not be the last to do this as well. But yeah, DAZN, if you're not in Canada or the US, that's another good deal. Again, exposure gets you out there. DAZN is, and I'll be honest with you, from what I've read up on DAZN, I remember it being the boxing streaming service when it first launched. It's kind of become the international sports streaming service, like the de facto, like, hey, if you have a US sport and you want it to go somewhere in a different country, go to DAZN. Like the NFL puts all their games on DAZN, MLB, I remember right, goes on DAZN. Like there's a lot of sports internationally on DAZN. It's just kind of the go-to spot. So it makes sense for the AFL to do it.
Yeah, and just to be clear, people don't know there is arena football outside of the U.S., especially in Japan. You also got
Yes.
some in, and I believe there was one in China, or else I might be thinking of something different
No, you,
here.
you aren't wrong. The Chinese Arena Football League existed in the 2010s. It actually was kind of fun, and there are games that exist online of the old games on the Chinese. It's the CAFL. If you look it up and type in Chinese Arena Football League, you can find the YouTube channel, and there's a bunch of old broadcasts on it. It was received pretty well from what I can tell from crowds. Just it's kind of hard to keep something funded across the seas for a sport that is niche.
Yeah, and then like football is, I don't know, we're getting close to calling it a worldwide sport, even though USA is not doing well in that world championship. I think I talked losing to Japan and then losing to another with that whole thing. People are actually realize those type of games and matchups exist. So
Right.
so though I will say Japan having that type of thing makes sense because what their athleticism with speed, it makes sense because I saw when they beat USA, I'm like, well, they're running an option and kind of a veer stuff like that works for them for that.
Oh, right. Yeah,
for that.
I mean, yeah, I find it wild we ever had international arena football in the first place. Hell, I know Chris kind of hinted at it, I believe, but they had arena team in Hawaii for the longest, or at least arena influence for Hawaii for the longest time. I had a buddy of mine, Scott Burke, who mentioned that one of the games they did was like an international showcase or a Pacific Island showcase. They had arena nets on stilts, like actual like bases, not hanging from the rafters. We're talking like actual like, on floor stilts. So, that is a thing. People have done that in the past too.
Yeah. Like I'm trying to figure like how many arenas are in Hawaii, especially with each island. That's also kind of interesting.
That I'm not sure. I mean, I just think Honolulu and then everyone else's guess.
Like I don't even know. Like it's possible they do hockey in Hawaii. I just don't know like where. Like because like we know University of Hawaii they have basketball. And just like I just don't know the whole sports climate in Hawaii. Of course,
right.
Hawaii has their own kind of problem with what happened last year that they're trying to recover. So
yeah. I mean that plays into it a lot. You're not wrong.
Yeah, so it'll be kind of interesting. And of course, I believe Hawaii Warriors might be joining a different conference here soon, depending on what happens here in college. But that's a whole out of the topic type thing here. So, like you and I, we have Nashville. We have either Nashville Billions is either kind of a coin flip for that game. We both agree on Albany, and I'll just do a little bit quick thing with the Arena League here. You got another matchup with Battle Missouri Casey at Ozark. It's basically both of these games in Iowa at Duluth. It's like coin flip now.
I was gonna say that one definitely is a coin flip too, TAL wise. I wouldn't be 100% on who's going to pull it out, and I think there's cases for both personally. Been playing a good year, but it'll impact a bit of the playoffs, you'd think. So definitely want to keep an eye on it.
I just don't like because they're both on YouTube and they're at the same time. I'm like, but all right,
hey, multi-stream it, man. Put it on that.
Well, I'll probably have to put one on my Roku on my television, either one on my phone or one on my laptop. Maybe some of my tablets that I haven't used in a while. Like I keep forgetting I haven't, but like they're old tablets. Let me be clear. So
right.
So because unfortunately, technology, after about 3 years, obsolete. They need to slow down a little bit. Though I don't know. We'll see because who knows? Probably pretty soon we might do virtual reality. I hope not. I hope to dear God.
Virtual reality.
Yeah.
I'm not sold. Not sold yet, Will.
No, I'm not. A lot of people are not. It's just like that was a big craze back in the 90s when I was a kid, and they're trying to bring it back. Don't even get me started with the whole 3D movie craze they try to pull again.
Oh, Jesus. Don't bring me back there. I still think about PlayStation 3D. Remember those 3D games?
Oh, yeah, don't get me started on those. Like I can't even see.
It was 3D. The next frontier, Will. 3D TV, ESPN 3D. Rest in peace, ESPN 3D, by the way.
Don't remind me. I remember at Best Buy, they were trying to show I believe it was either a replay of a national championship trying to advertise 3D TV, the ESPN 3D channel. Yeah. Well, that's it for this week. Thanks for Zach for coming on, and hopefully, we're getting so close to the end of this. What's another word we should call this season, Zach, for the Arena Football League?
Smorgasbord. I think that's a good one.
Smorgasbord. Okay.
Smorgasbord.
Great. Now I'm thinking of the Swedish chef from the Mount Gordon. Smorgasbord.
You hungry?
Yeah. Well, believe it or not, I might actually hear in a few minutes. Anyway, thank you for joining us for Arena STL. See you guys next week.